and welcome into Getting Help from Uncle Sam. You know, if you watch this show regularly, in December of 2020, my guest, Congressman Barry Moore, was a guest on the show. And, you know, you had just won the House seat. You were a freshman getting ready to go up there. I wished you farewell and Godspeed. And you didn't know how much Godspeed you would need.
That's exactly right.
But then on the 3rd of January, you were officially sworn in.
That's right.
And then this big thing happened that's called January 6th, which, you know, it's every time you turn around, you're hearing something different.
Sure.
But basically, you were there.
That's exactly right, Jack. It's actually our 3rd day on the job. And so that was the day we were to certify the election. And
Absolutely.
So, you know, there were a lot of people in town and, you know, a lot of Trump supporters, obviously, and a lot of other people we think now. And so it was just one of those days that, you know, it seemed like business as usual, but again, I hadn't been on the job that long. And then, so we signed the documents to certify the election or not certify the elections or contest the delegates. And I went back to my office there in Longworth Building across the road in the Capitol. And I could see the people moving around outside, but at that point, never felt threatened.
So at that point, you weren't even in the Capitol.
No, I was
not.
not.
Back at your office.
I was back at my office. Now, that morning earlier, I was in a meeting, and one of the things that I haven't told a lot of people, but I've mentioned it to a few of my close friends, was that morning in the meeting, a friend of mine, Ralph Norman from North Carolina, said to me, he said, "Hey, Barry," he said, "y'all be careful today." He said, because we have word on the street that Antifa people are putting on Trump shirts or red shirts. And so I thought to myself at the time, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that? That makes the crowd look bigger. You know, and that was my thought. I was like, that makes no sense politically. Why would you do that? Well, at the end of the day, it kind of felt...
You knew why.
Yeah, I didn't see an opposing protest. I never saw any black shirts. I didn't see BLM. I didn't see Antifa. All I saw was a sea of red shirts everywhere. And so now looking back, maybe they did infiltrate the crowd, and that kind of started that narrative that the left loved to push.
And of course, we heard a lot of things about all these police officers that were killed.
Yes.
And, you know,
and that's the thing, too. I mean, they kept offering these medals for these police officers that were killed, but I had already had word on the street that Officer Sicknick or whatever, he hadn't died. He didn't die that day like they told us. And so he had gotten injured or I think he might have had a stroke or something. But so now that we get the videos and we're starting to actually, now that we're in charge, the Republicans have the majority in the House and we have kind of operations of the Hill, if you will, Kevin McCarthy's made the decision, and I think the right decision, to release the video and let the American people make a decision and quit letting the left drive the narrative in the country. Goes back to the January 6th Commission, too. That was all just made for Hollywood movie.
Yes. And then, I mean, and the things that happened and that came out of that commission, can they now be brought to task on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Because basically, I guess you, at that point, you were raise your hand under oath.
Right.
To do whatever it is you're doing.
The thing, I think, that January 6th committee, though, was set up by Nancy Pelosi, and then they brought all the cameras in. And remember, we're always allowed as a minority party to nominate our people for committees. For the first time in history, Jim Banks and Jim Jordan were struck from that committee, and she appointed her Republicans that she wanted, which were Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. They had no inclination whatsoever to get to really the bottom of where the failure was in security and what happened on January 6th.
And that's, I mean, basically from that became one lie after another lie.
And I mean, insurrection in general. I mean, they called it an insurrection, and I thought to myself, well, I never felt in danger. And I wasn't in the building, but around looking out in the field, I never saw anything in there that looked like it was extremely dangerous for members. And again, the way they just released certain segments of the video and didn't want the American people to know the truth. And it was, again, all made for television movie to drive the people, to turn the people against the president, to turn the people against the conservatives in the country. And in some ways, I think it worked, but now we have an opportunity. The video doesn't lie.
And from where your office is at, you could look out. Did it look like an overwhelming amount of people out there, or was it just, you know?
No, it looked like I remember
like
just glancing out the window. I just saw people coming and going with their flags and their red shirts, and just walking and just going and coming. And honestly, my wife and daughter were there. They flew out that day. I'm glad they didn't actually go because they might have been on video just walking towards the Capitol. You just don't know. I mean, and how they targeted some of those people is unbelievable. And I still think those people in jail in D.C., we have to have a day of reckoning for those people. So much we know.
I'm glad you brought that because that was my next question.
Yeah.
nobody's been charged with anything, have they?
No, the stuff I saw was just, and I had them pull a list in my team. The charges, it's minor stuff. But the thing to me is, what happened to a speedy trial? You know,
Yes.
What happened to innocent until proven guilty? All of these people have, I think, in so many ways, have become political prisoners, and that's something we need to get to the bottom of. And I think more than anything, that upsets my wife when she sees those people knowing they're in there, and
Yeah.
they've not been charged necessarily with any kind of violent crime.
It upsets every American.
Oh,
Because you
yes.
just realize, okay, if that can happen to you, that can happen to me.
Anybody.
That's right. I mean, I can be walking, and you all of a sudden, you're afraid to, for lack of a word, wear your colors, so
yeah,
to speak.
Yeah.
you
Town
know?
halls. I did town halls all through August last year, and that was the number one concern, was this weaponization of the DOJ
Absolutely.
and the FBI against American citizens for political purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the direction that kind of drove me to get on Judiciary Committee. That is one of the things that pushed me to get out there and get in the fight, because I'm like, we have, at this point in time, noble American citizens who have paid their taxes, they don't have a criminal record, and they're afraid of their own government, and that's an issue.
Yeah, that is an issue. So basically now there'll be obviously a commission to study that commission. And you think it'll be done speedily?
I think it is already. I mean, if you think
Good.
about just the fact that McCarthy let Tucker Carlson release those videos last week or the week before, and now he said, okay, we're just going to release them all. We're fixing to put these people in the left on trial in front of the American public so they can see for themselves what happened. And I think more than anything, that's going to force their hand. It's going to allow us to move with the support of the American people, because we've even seen liberals who were in the Clinton cabinet come forward in the last few weeks and say, we owe the conservatives apologies. After we've seen the video, we realize that this whole thing was a made-for-TV movie.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for doing
Thank
this
you,
job.
Jan.
And maybe some days you wonder, why did I do this?
It's a calling, my friend.
It has to be a calling.
It is, brother.
And of course, we need to let our viewers know that the congressman has offices in Wetumpka, Andalusia, Troy, Dothan. You have one in Enterprise?
No,
Probably
no.
not. That's
that
your
gets
home.
all of them, I think. Yeah, all four of them.
You can come in his backyard.
And we do mobile office hours. So if they need
That's
anything,
right.
we're on the road. Follow us on Facebook, and we're coming to those towns where people can't drive.
Great, great. And if you need any questions answered, their staff is very knowledgeable, first of all, and second of all, they do get back to you. And we'll be right back right after this.